Whole life insurance has high fees. Love you, Dave. Hello and welcome to the Durham Talents channel. My name is Jesse Durham. For today's installment in our Myths, Mysteries, and Misconceptions playlist, we're going to address the misconception that whole life insurance has high fees, as reported by the financial gurus and entertainers out there in the wild world. So we're going to look at this and verify whether this is true or not with an infinite banking lens. So let me just say right out of the gate that if this is your first installment that you're seeing of our Myths, Mysteries, and Misconceptions playlist, I did cover in episode 2 the myth that term insurance is pure insurance. And then in number 7, we did also cover the saying that whole life is 20 times what term insurance is. So again, I'm just encouraging you to check out what has been said about whole life insurance or about the infinite banking concept in this playlist in particular. But of course, you can always check out our client interviews, our regular episodes, all that is available. So what I would like to do when it comes to addressing the misconception that whole life has high fees is just ask a couple of questions. I think it's always good to ask questions. It's good for you to ask questions about what I say. I think it's good to ask questions about things that Dave Ramsey or anybody else says, for that matter. And I love you, Dave. Love you. Compared to what? If somebody's saying whole life insurance has high fees, compared to what? And even if we verified that they did, compared to what? Why? I think that's a reasonable and a valid and a pertinent question to ask. If something has a high fee, why does it? Because maybe there's reason. So in my episode before, and this isn't even in my notes, but it's coming to me right now. I have notes. I write things down, folks. I'm a note taker. I like an outline. I like to plan things out, be prepared, give valuable content. But I talk about the difference between a Prius and a Peterbilt. Both of those are vehicles, but they are not for the same purpose, and nor do they cost the same when someone wants to buy them. Okay, the folks that want Peterbilts, they're not going and getting Priuses. Those that are getting a Prius, they're not wanting a Peterbilt. Okay, so that just makes sense. So I think it's worthwhile to ask, compared to what? I think it's worthwhile to ask. If so, why? Okay, but let's do this. Let's say, and let me preface by saying this. I don't know what the fees are for the multiple policies that I own. So for the better part of a decade now, for going on 9 years, my wife and I have systematically bought policy after policy after policy. So we've been buying properly structured whole life policies with mutual companies that pay dividends for years and years now, ourselves as consumers, as practitioners of this concept, okay, implementing infinite banking, just as people. And do you know, I've never asked, nor do I care, what the fees are with my policy. And so that's one reason why this is interesting for me, to cover this, because it's touted that whole life insurance has high fees. Okay, so it's worth addressing. I'm not going to overlook or ignore something that somebody is saying. Okay, I think it's worthwhile to ask valid questions. That's why I started with questions. I also am an open book. I'm open to share my experience. I've never considered what the fees are in getting my policies because I knew that I wanted something and I was going to pay what I wanted to pay for that thing, or I wouldn't have gotten it, which is interesting. And we'll get to this in just a moment, I guess, but I'll go ahead and say it while I'm thinking about it now. You pick your premiums. So when someone is ready to implement the infinite banking concept, they've vetted it, they've researched it, they know that they're going to do this, they pick an amount of premium that they want to pay. Nobody's being forced to buy whole life insurance that they're going to privately own and use. Nobody's arms getting twisted to do that. Okay. It's a voluntary, and that's so beautiful. It's you as an individual picking something that you want, picking the premium that you want to pay for it. And you're doing so with a private company that's going to make you a part owner of that company, because we we personally own, and we encourage you to own policies with mutual life insurance companies. There are stock companies, there are mutual companies. I recently did an episode on our encyclomedia series where I talk about the differences between those companies, but we choose and prefer mutual life insurance companies. So I'm picking the premium in for this policy that I want to own with this insurance company that we're making the private deal. We're shaking hands on this. Okay. I filled out the application. I did the medical exam. I chose the amount of premium that I want to pay. They say, yep, we're going to give you this policy. This is the death benefit. This is the cash value. This is, okay, these are the terms of this particular contract. We shake hands on it. Essentially, it's like, yes. Okay. I pay that premium that I chose to pay, and all the other responsibilities are on the insurance company to perform. And somebody wants to say that there are high fees. Okay. Maybe they're trying to sell term insurance. And again, let me go ahead and say here, term insurance has its place. Term insurance has its place as a standalone insurance. Okay. I think that having convertible term is great for those that are looking to implement the infinite banking concept and you want to lock in some of your insurability now, but be paying term insurance type prices for that. So you could convert it later to whole life insurance, but term insurance has its place. Term insurance also has its place as it could be a potential rider that you would want on a whole life policy for various reasons. And that's going to be based off of the conversations that we would have, of course, because you should have a properly structured policy for you. Okay, I've said a lot about a lot of things, and I need to do one at a time instead. I have said that I don't know what the fees are for my policy, nor do I care, because I chose the premium. Okay, so from the first policy that I owned, from the first premium that I paid back in 2016, I picked that premium amount. And I knew before I signed the dotted line, before I paid the premium, I knew that was going to buy me a certain amount of death benefit. I knew that that was going to provide me with a certain amount of cash value that I could access and leverage immediately. Okay, my definition of immediately is within 30 days. Okay, so real quick to get off to the races to begin implementing infinite banking in our lives, right? And we did. We had a significant amount of debt at the time, about $50,000 worth of debt, and we immediately began taking a policy loan to pay that bad debt off, recapture that, and of course just build out this private banking system over the course of time, getting out of that bad debt with the third parties, gaining more control, more independence, enjoy the profitability, okay? So of our policy, but I chose the premium that made that whole thing happen. The premium. Notice I'm saying I chose the premium. Okay. So that's why I'm not mad. And that's why I'm not saying, well, what? Because again, I was getting a Peterbilt. I was not wanting a Prius. I was getting a Peterbilt. I wanted a big, strong, robust entity that I was going to own for my whole life. And I hope that analogy is helpful. I might use some others if it'll be more helpful, but I was wanting something particular. I wasn't just comparing, okay, this amount of death benefit, and it would be this premium with this company and this premium with this company, term versus whole life insurance. That's not what I was doing. So for those that are, so what I'm saying is I can understand that, yes, if you just look at price point, $500,000 death benefit could be this amount for term insurance, very, very small. And it would be this amount for whole life insurance. I could understand that if that's the only information that you looked at, or if that were the only information that you cared about, if we cordoned off that right there only, sure, I could understand why somebody would just say whole life insurance has high fees. There are a lot of fees that go into that, okay, for X and Y and Z. And I'm going to get into, because this would normally be where folks would start talking about whole life agents and their commissions. Okay, so I am making a separation. I'm going to cover both of these, okay, at length, in depth. Right now, I'm just focusing on fees, okay? We will get to commissions. Again, I'm an open book right there. I earn in this space. All across the country, I earn in this space. my children like to eat groceries too. so yes, I earn. Okay, but let me shelf that for the moment. We'll get into it. There's so much there. This is a lot of fun. I hope you're enjoying this. If you're enjoying this one way or another, I know the other will be in the comment section regardless. And normally on that point, I normally try to post what a detractor or what somebody of a different perspective says, because I believe that conversation is worth having while we can be respectful of each other. I mean, some things, of course, because, I'm not on here using profanity. I'm trying to put out a certain message in a certain way. Those comments don't make it down in there, of course. I call those out. But while we can be respectful and go back and forth, that's fine. I'm open to that, particularly if you're open to learning. I know there's still going to be those folks, and they'll be respectful, and they're just going to hold to their views. Great. We're all burdened with free will. That's awesome. But I can appreciate the conversation that folks from different perspectives can have for the benefit of others. And that's one reason why I will post comments of a different perspective also. So I was saying something along the lines of, yes, I'm going to cover commissions for an agent in the future. Let me just bullet form real quick say that it takes something to bring a product to the marketplace. That costs something. Somebody's going to be paid for that effort, for that endeavor to bring a product to the marketplace, to connect the dots. Okay. That costs something. Furthermore, I believe that the workman's worthy of his hire, and commissions are not inherently bad. Again, I'll go at length into this, but I'm still throwing these things out. Commissions are not inherently bad. We're all remunerated in some way. I've been an employee before for the state of North Carolina. I was paid a salary. I was remunerated with money. Okay, I was paid to work for the state, and it was called a salary, but it was me getting paid. Okay, so if an insurance agent earns a commission, it's a word for getting paid. And again, I like to eat groceries, obviously. I'm trying to be in that swole life. And my children like to eat groceries as well. Okay. So I'm an open book when it comes to that. I'm not hesitant to show a client what I'm earning if they're interested in that. But again, I've been the consumer, and I never asked. I mean, we were multiple policies into this game before I even thought about, oh, my agent's getting paid. This is what he does for a living. I was just so enthralled with the information and the financial independence that I saw possible for myself and that we were experiencing. We were paying premiums into these policies. We were using these policies. We were paying off debts. We were financing family vacations from our policies. We were doing this stuff before and maybe I'm slow. I'm not saying I'm real quick to pick up on things, but we had multiple policies before I even really halfway wrapped my mind around, this person is providing, valuable service, and they're getting paid for it. And yay, we were referring friends and telling everybody, oh, you need to learn about this information, before we ever really considered much of the professional side, which again, I think has been very valuable for me to have personally implemented this concept for, 4 or 5 years before we ever stepped into it professionally. And now we've had, going on 4 years now, more than 4 years of professionally helping folks become their own banker. And we're in that professional role now. So very interesting. All that to say, I have both the consumer and the professional experience to look at this idea that the financial gurus and entertainers are putting out there on the wide interwebs, that whole life has high fees. I think we need to ask our questions. I think if we're vetting this idea of becoming our own banker, we're going to more readily be able to address this, because Nash so often talks about not being afraid to capitalize what it is that you're doing. Okay. Grocery stores have to be capitalized, right? A lot goes into getting a grocery store off the ground. The permits, the property, the employees, the building or the structure itself, the distribution, so much goes into that before they ever sell anything. Okay. He talks about in his book, of course, what it takes to get a commercial bank up and running. There's a lot there's years of effort and tons of capital that goes into capitalizing a system that, yes, can be ultimately very profitable. So insurance companies provide a very valuable product and service to folks. And here's where there's a part of me that would just like to say that I have a problem with folks that'll tell you blanket statement, don't do this, always do that. I believe some things certainly. Okay, with certainty, I believe some things and I feel a certain way. Okay. With that being said, to make a cookie cutter statement for everybody in every situation, regardless of, not so much for a lot of things, right? So to simply say, well, whole life has high fees, buy term, invest the difference. For everybody, all the time, in all situations. Why? So the idea that whole life has high fees, I want to say there are so many variables to this, okay? If it did, but it still made sense for me to pay them, great. If that's what I want to do. So what I was saying is, I have a problem with folks that say nobody should do this when they don't know anything about that person's goals, aspirations, plans, intentions, what they're already doing, what they want to do. They don't know anything about that stuff. And they're saying, oh no, buy term, invest the difference. Whole life has high fees. What do you know about that person? What do you know about their situation? What do you know about what they want to actually do and accomplish? There's that. And then the idea that folks aren't educated enough or willing to become educated enough to make their own decisions. So please, by all means, question everything that I say. Vet it for yourself. I would encourage you to go and read the book, Becoming Your Own Banker by R. Nelson Nash. He's got a second book, Building Your Warehouse of Wealth. He's got a 6.5 presentation, seminar type presentation on the concept. Okay, so go to the original source material for yourself, like I did. Okay, so dive in on the book, reread the book. But the idea that folks, they're not educated enough to make the decision, and if they do make the decision to get whole life, they're probably a salesman. Well, for myself, I bought whole life policy after whole life policy for years, and many of them, before I ever became a professional in this space, encouraging folks, helping folks, structuring policies, writing business, coaching folks. I was just a consumer myself. So now let me make this one comparison here, because we are conventionally told to park our money 10, 20, 30, 40 years into qualified plans. For example, something like your 401k. So let me ask this question. Is it purported that whole life has high fees? So the insurance company is collecting high fees, an insurance agent is earning high commissions. Okay, that's purported. Whole life insurance has high fees. Let me ask the question, and let's just compare that conventional route to whole life, especially and obviously if you're wanting to buy whole life insurance for the purpose of implementing infinite banking. If you're contributing to a 401k, let's say, are there fees there? You must know that it's yes at some basic level. Even if, like me, you've never really paid attention to the 401ks when you did own them prior to, what I would call my financial renaissance back in 2015. I had 401k. I was contributing, and I probably knew about two things about my 401k. I knew on a quarterly basis whether my total number went up or down, because they gave me that quarterly information. And I knew that I could pick between, a mild, a moderate, or a high level of risk on how I wanted my money that I was paying to be invested. And that's basically all that I knew about my 401k. But here's what I'm saying. Fees with whole life insurance. Are there fees? Yes, it's a product being brought to the marketplace. It costs something. 401k, it's a product being brought to the marketplace. Yes, there are fees. A whole life insurance policy that's properly structured with a mutual company that pays a dividend, every dollar that's paid in premium will forever for the life of that contract. Grow, compound, never diminish, never go down. Cash value is just going to go up on weekends, on holidays. Okay, so in a 401k, can it go up? Yep. Can it go down? Yep. Are there guarantees that it won't go to zero? No. Okay, but think about this on the back end. Are fees still paid when you are going down? When you're losing money, when you're losing money, are you still paying fees? Yes. You still pay fees even when you are losing money. I'm just saying there's a difference. Contractual, legal right to compound and grow your money for your whole life, pun intended, whole life, versus could go to zero. No guarantee that it won't. And whether it goes down or not, you're going to pay fees anyway. I'm going to leave that right there with you, okay? I'm encouraging you to do what makes sense for you to do, okay? So I feel like I've maybe gone left and right so very much that I've said so many different things to you, but what I'm encouraging you to do is go to the source material. What I'm encouraging you to do is to ask questions when somebody says something, myself included. Ask questions. I'm encouraging you to evaluate your plans, your goals now and long range for the rest of your life. Okay. And if you arrive at wanting the financial control and profitability of becoming your own banker, then educate yourself, ask questions, let's connect and figure out what it could look like for you to implement infinite banking into your household or your business or your investing. So I would encourage you to find my calendar link on our website. I've also got a free introductory presentation to the infinite banking concept, all on our website, durhamtalents.com. So this has been a great pleasure for me. I look forward to our next conversation. Have a great day. Take care. You mean I've got to pay fees for my 401k even when I'm losing money? Who's paying high fees now? Whole life insurance just... Oh, I got to start to just jump right into my Dave Ramsey routine right there. Love you, Dave. Love you, Dave.